Hello and welcome to my Week 5 course project presentation, The Eastern Oyster, the Key to a Diverse Chesapeake. Biodiversity in the Chesapeake Bay. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is the world's largest estuary system, spanning over 4,479 square miles, and is home to a beautiful bounty of biodiversity. Many species of flora and fauna rely on this system of rivers and creeks that meet the sea. Among them, the eastern oyster, a shellfish that provides much more than food for the Chesapeake. This and so many other reasons are why biodiversity loss is a grave concern for this area. Flora and fauna. Many diverse species help to make up this delicate ecosystem, all of which are what keeps this area thriving. From the land to the ocean, native plants like the Sweet Bay magnolia and pawpaws, as well as native animals like the Virginia big-eared bat and blue crab, all keep the bay diverse. The diets and contribution of each species play key roles in this estuary system's health. So now we can talk about biodiversity loss and its role in our estuary system. So Earth's biodiversity includes the entire range of living species diversity, the genetic variation that occurs among individuals within a species, genetic diversity, and at a higher level, the biological communities in which species live and their associations with the physical and chemical environment, or ecosystem diversity. And biodiversity loss is among many concerns facing the Chesapeake Bay, all due to human influence, which exacerbates those concerns. So how does that tie in with the eastern oyster? Now we will talk about biodiversity and the eastern oyster. The eastern oyster is one of the most essential living things in this estuary system. The eastern oyster provides the Chesapeake with many benefits. Among those benefits are water quality, as well as economic benefits like commercial and local fishing, as well as seafood. As it pertains to biodiversity loss, the eastern oyster is a vital part of other species' diets as well as our own. Now that we have discussed biodiversity and the eastern oyster, now we are time to talk about the eastern oyster's role. To add to its list of credentials, the eastern oyster provides a sense of protection from biodiversity loss in this ecosystem, as oyster beds purify and act as a filtration system for the bay and all its inhabitants. Serving as a catalyst for a biodiverse system that caters to other species of vital interest, like the blue crab or other creatures that rely on their powers to clean the water. These powers not only serve those living in the ocean, but us on land as well. By providing clean water and a biodiverse system, the eastern oyster ensures clean water for fishing and recreation, as well as food from both the oysters themselves and other seafood sources. Now that we have discussed the importance of biodiversity as it pertains to our estuary system and the species that inhabit it, we can talk about who can help. As I mentioned before, the beneficiaries from the eastern oyster and its work in the prevention of biodiversity loss are vast. However, it is the government that needs to hear why. Those officials are also inhabitants of the Chesapeake and on both a local and national level can make serious change for efforts in their protection. Enacting laws and policies that prevent the destruction of their habitats, as well as waste and pollution limits, and over-harvesting can ensure that protection. And now we can break down that just a little bit further in our socio-ecological framework. In this socio-ecological framework, we can clearly see how the eastern oyster ties into biodiversity and its importance to both the estuary system as well as the people who need them and live there. Both the local and national government have influential presences on the well-being of the health and abundance of this species. And now we can take a moment to go over the socio-ecological framework as it regards to the oysters in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Oysters of the Chesapeake Bay watershed are the main focus, and then human activity and influence on a social and ecological scale are another focus, which then ties into fishing, recreational boating, oyster harvesting, commercial boating tours, etc. And then we jump to what can inflict on the oysters of the Chesapeake Bay, which are environmental factors that disrupt oyster beds, such as pollution, and then we have overharvesting or fishing, waste, trash, etc., which then leads back to the topic. So this is kind of like a flow chart of what's going on. And we can kind of tie everything together with laws and policies, as we said before, on boating, fishing, overharvesting, waste, trash, pollutants, and both a local and regional scale, as well as an international scale, can help to kind of tie these in and make sure that there are environmental protections and things like that for the oyster of the Chesapeake Bay. So what has been done and what is being done? We now know the poignancy of the eastern oyster, its role in the prevention of biodiversity loss, who benefits and who can help. Now it's time we go over what has actually been done and what is continuing to be done for them. A technique that has been in practice by Native Americans has been studied to help understand not only the role of the oyster in history, but sustainable fishing habits that can protect them as well. Another study has been conducted that helps bring back populations of this species by designing and testing mock habitats, which can be used to reinstate the oyster and other vital species and their populations. So now that we have gone over what is being done and what has been done in the past, we need to discuss if we are in favor of these implementations. As an activist for the Chesapeake Bay and the eastern oyster, I can say with great confidence that the items presented in the last slide are and have been very successful strides to protecting and conserving this species. In particular, the study on Native American sustainable fishing or harvesting practices gives us great examples of how we can live in harmony with nature by preserving the environment while also benefiting from it mutually. The second study mentioned aims to provide tangible evidence of conservation efforts that prove to be a huge success, and implementing more of these artificial reef systems, kind of like in this picture over here, can once again restore their numbers, which is a win in my book. So I am in favor of both of the present and past studies that have been done and the actual action items that are being done to preserve and protect the species. So in this slide, we are going to talk about swag, or stuff we all get, in order to help spread the word. So to spread awareness of the importance of the eastern oyster and how saving the species can help our Chesapeake and save our Chesapeake, swag is a great way to engage locals, which is the beneficiary of this entire practice. For this scenario, I have designed a bag made of sustainable material, which is key, that can be reused, that bears the logo and hashtag Save the Oysters. This simple yet catching design and slogan can remind those in the area to reduce, reuse, recycle, as well as doing what they can to ensure the eastern oyster thrives once again. So on the bag, we obviously have an oyster, which is pretty simple. Like, the design is extremely simple, which is meant to just catch your attention, hold your attention, and give you the most direct wording to what we're actually doing. So I really like this top part, like I'm doing my part, or you, and then of course the hashtag Save the Oysters, so we can bring in that little implementation of social media into the swag. Okay, and we have finally come to the end. So the information we have gone over today should not only give you something to think about, but also provoke you to act in any way possible to save the Chesapeake Bay, the watershed and its inhabitants, like that of the eastern oyster. Moving forward, implementing sustainability, like we talked about in the studies above, as well as accountability, will prove effective in the fight for a cleaner bay. I would like to thank you all kindly for attending my presentation. My contact info is below. And then here is my reference page. Thank you again.